Today, I'm going to show you how to set up your TP-Link router. And before I start, I would like to remind you that if my video helps you, please support my work. I send half of all donations to animal shelters. All the details are in the description below. The first step is turning on the router. Plug the power adapter into the router. Connect one end to an outlet and the other end to the router. When the router powers on, the indicator will illuminate. It may take a few minutes for it to completely turn on. The next step is to connect the cable from your internet service provider or from your modem to the internet port. This port is often marked as internet and typically has a different color. Each cable should be inserted until it clicks. You now need to reset the router to its original factory settings. Hold down the reset button on the router for 10 seconds. Wait for the router's indicator lights to start flashing. Occasionally, this button can be found inside the router casing to avoid accidental presses. In this case, use a thin object to press it down. The router will reboot, and all the settings will return to their factory defaults. Plug one end of the Ethernet cable from the router into a LAN port. The other end into the Ethernet card of your computer or laptop. Wait a few minutes for connection. Great, the router is connected to your computer. Now you need to set it up. But first, if you don't have an Ethernet cable or your computer doesn't have an Ethernet port, I'll show you another way to connect the router. All you need to do is connect the router with the power adapter and the cable from your internet provider. This will enable Wi-Fi. If your router is new, the name of your Wi-Fi network will be the same as the name of your router. Your router has its own Wi-Fi network name and password that is printed on a label. Connect to it. Great, you've connected to the router. Now let's start setting it up. First, open your web browser and visit the URL you see on the screen. Use the URL bar instead of the search bar. At the beginning, you will see a form with a login and password. Usually, it is admin and admin. If these credentials are wrong, then find label on your router. The credentials are often printed on the bottom of the device. If none of this works, it means that your router has already been configured and someone has changed the login and password. If you can't find out the login credentials, just reset the router to factory settings. And then log into the router's personal cabinet using the standard credentials. If your router settings do not look like mine, it means that your router has a different firmware. I made a video for every firmware type. You can find all the links in the description down below. I want to warn you right away that there are many firmware versions and they may differ slightly. But don't worry, you will succeed. Just watch the video and follow the instructions. At first, you need to set a password for the router's admin panel. Click on this button. Keep in mind that, depending on your firmware version, some setup steps may be different or appear in a different order. But don't worry, you've got this. Just watch the video and follow instructions. On the first screen, select your time zone. If you're not sure which one to choose, just select any. On the next page, select your internet connection type. This is usually specified in your contract with the internet provider. If you don't know, try clicking on this button for auto detection. The router will attempt to determine the connection type automatically. If detection fails, select Dynamic IP. Depending on the type of connection you selected, the next page might look different from mine. If you chose Dynamic IP, you'll need to select one of the options shown. If your internet provider allows internet access only for a specific MAC address, you'll need to clone the MAC address of your primary computer. If you're not sure, just select Use Default MAC Address. In most cases, cloning the MAC address isn't necessary. But if you don't get internet access after the quick setup, repeat the setup and try cloning the MAC address. On the next page, set a name and password for your future Wi-Fi network. You'll see one or more available Wi-Fi bands for your router. If there are several, enable them all and set a name and password for each network. When you write the credentials, click the Next button. If you were connected to the router via the Wi-Fi network, reconnect to it. On this page, you can configure the TP-Link cloud service. You don't need to do anything here, just click Skip. Next, you'll see a summary of all the settings you've entered. Click this button to confirm. Wait while the router tries to connect to the internet. If it fails, double-check that all cables are properly connected. Click Skip, then try rebooting the router. If it connects successfully, check whether the internet is working. Just Google something. If it's still not working, you'll need to reboot the router manually. To do this, go to Advanced. Then select System. Select Reboot tab and click on the Reboot button. Then check whether the internet is working. Just Google something. If the internet still doesn't appear, log back into the router's admin panel using the password you created at the start. Go to the internet and then clone MAC address. Save the settings. Reboot your router again. And after a couple of minutes, check internet connection. If internet still doesn't appear, contact your internet service provider. He will tell you what type of connection you have and what other settings you need to do. That's all. If you found my video helpful, please support my work. Half of all donations I send to animal shelters. All details are in the description down below.